Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil, Philmy, and Perch.
Yes, our own Pip the Troll here at Nuff Said.
Don't get that started.
Yeah, well, actually, see, that was I was going to make a comment to that, but the Legends of DC guys wouldn't get it, is that you may be the Nuff Said Troll, but Zach is definitely our troll over there. Well, so this day got started with Zach out of the blue just writing in to complain about Powerless. And hey, look, I'm the only guy in the group who likes Powerless. But I just felt he was stirring the pot, and I responded. And that's what he wanted. No, I do love Zach, and I love doing our podcast together, Legends of Podcast of Tomorrow, on the Legends of DC feed, in which we talk about the show that even I think drives him even more nuts than Powerless, which is Legends of Tomorrow, which is an objectively bad show as opposed to a subjectively bad show. So, kid.
I totally disagree with you about your opinion on Powerless, but I'll fight to the death your right to voice it. I don't enjoy the show, but if you do, it's going to be people like you that if this gets a second season, it's going to be people like you.
Yeah, well, it just bothers me that this might not get a second season and Legends has a third. I'm stuck in a third season with the Legends. And, because, like I said, but then again, that's WB. They're or CW. I'm sorry. Their bar is much lower. Like I said, I for one am just fascinated by the idea of people having to live in an insane universe, and that universe is insane without a doubt, and you never even think about how insane it is, and and not for nothing. Like I said, when Zach wants to go talk continuity on where does the where's the batarang hidden, it's like that's every single Batman incarnation ever. Nothing on that utility belt ever makes any sense. That thing is a bag of holding, and it's great that Batman has invented TARDIS technology that he can make things bigger on the inside than on the outside. Be nice if he shared that with the rest of the world. Which I guess is arguably what Powerless is about finding ways to make consumer products that protect people in an insane world, and actually showing Batman doing something good for the world for once, instead of just beating up on mentally ill people. Okay.
I don't know. I guess my whole argument is just, I don't know. It seems to me they try to shoehorn in too many DC references in an episode, which is fine, but I don't know, it gets to me, and I think the big thing is I could see people joking about it a little bit, but if this were real, I know it's supposed to be a comedy, but wouldn't you be like, oh crap, we're going to die. We need to figure out ways to protect ourselves.
Well, it's like this. If you're in a concentration camp, you can sit there and cry every morning, or you can get up and try to deal with your life as best you can.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is everybody in a superhero universe is basically waiting to die horribly. That's the truth. If you're living in a superhero universe, you think about people living in war zones right now out in Afghanistan or Syria, and they're just drones and bombs just dropping, murdering people every day. The guilty along with the innocent. And yet people have to carry on. You have to carry on. And that's what this is really the absurdity of the superhero universe, is that there are, all that stuff that we think about in those other countries, those war zones, that's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can't even become a refugee to someplace else, You can't even leave the war zone to come to, Europe or America or even Russia or any other place where there isn't massive wars going on. Because every corner of the globe, the only exception which is kind of this interesting point they kind of make in Powerless, is that if you go to the flyover country, which means the superheroes fly over it, you actually get some safety, and superheroes are a magical thing still.
Yes.
But if you live in the city, and, for what it's worth, humans kind of have to live in the city. You kind of have to, because we work in these groups that kind of require us to work together. And, I mean, there's a reason why humans live in cities. And, the fact that, yes, you are living in this constant superhuman war zone is terrifying. But, of course, at least it's a super sci-fi war zone where we can rebuild the city every week, too. So, the absurdity is cooked in. And, I think that's why I love it, because I just love the conceit of the show. So, that's the thing. I think that if it was just, if it was just an Office Place comedy and it wasn't a high concept comedy, I might not enjoy it. If Gilligan's Island was just about 7 people hanging out, it might not be nearly as funny as it is as the idea of 7 people hanging out on a desert that are stranded on a desert island that have this thing. Like just seeing the Beverly Hillbillies not in Beverly Hills wouldn't, it might not be as funny, but it's the high concept. It's that concept, and if you embrace the concept, I think it's much easier to like the show.
I think it's just the level of absurdity they take it to. Like, you use the example of a concentration camp. Like, yeah, you can't be depressed all the time, but I mean, I could see in a concentration camp, people singing songs to each other, telling stories, trying to keep their, their spirits up. But they're not going to be like, did you see the uniform Krause was wearing today? Pff, that his uniform totally didn't match that gun he used to mow down 17 of us.
Well, I can't say a lot about it because I've never been in that situation. I do know that my parents, who did know survivors, did say that, they often did joke about their time there. Because that was, at least that gentleman.
Well, after the fact, I could see maybe joking about it, but I mean, when you're in the thick of it, I don't know if you'd be joking that much about. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is, like, none of us have experienced it, so it's very hard to say.
True.
We can only go on what we're told, and what we're told is that a lot of, I know when I talk to vets who've been in wars that they often, they do a lot of jokes. Now, did they tell jokes in the field? You look at something like MASH. MASH is based off of actual war stories. The movie and later the series was based off of actual war stories. So it was all about the jokes and the pranks people pulled on each other because no one really wants to talk about the actual war. And so if you're in it constantly, maybe people are going to be real grim and gritty, just like the DC universe. I mean, honestly, maybe that is the greatest argument for the way the DC cinematic universe has been built, is that, look, this is a world with a Superman and a Zod, and cities are being destroyed. This isn't happy stuff. It's not happy stuff, and so this is what we have to deal with.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's the question: is when people are faced with tragedy, do they face it with a laugh or do they face it with tears? And I think what you probably are going to get is you're going to get a lot of mixtures of both, and a lot of people are going to be talking with tears. And, you look at right now with the way people are dealing with everything, everything political in America, which is nowhere near as crazy, but still it is a thing. And there are people that deal with it with tears, there are people that deal with it with anger, and there are a lot of people who just go right to the comedy.
Yes.
Because it gives us some strength and some empowerment. So anyway, but that's Powerless. We're doing a lot of DC stuff for this because there's a lot of great DC stuff going on. And one of the things that came out is, of course, there's going to be a Nightwing movie. This has been declared. They have picked a director, and it's the director of the Lego Batman film, which I think is brilliant. Because the one thing I do think that the Lego Batman film understood was that in this fantasy property, the thing about the Lego Batman film and why it's good is because it is presented as a story that a kid would tell if he was playing with his Lego Batmans.
Yeah.
And that's the idea of it. That was the conceit of the Lego movie, is that it is a kid's understanding of that absurdity and embracing of that absurdity. And I think that absurdity is intrinsic in that superheroic form. Now, when you have this guy, now he's going to be going into a real dramatic superhero universe. But of course, one of the things that everyone has talked about, including Phil in his brilliant blog post on Legends of DC, pointed out, was that the big thing about Dick Grayson is the connective tissue to the rest of the superhero community.
Yes.
And here is my pitch to DC. Feel free to use it. I usually pitch stuff to Marvel, but DC, this one's free to you. Okay? When Dick left Batman, he decided that what the world needed, that before even when Batman and Wonder Woman are off sitting there mourning the tragedies of the world of man, Dick says, you know what? There's a lot of people out there that are special. Let me gather them together. So he gathers together his own team of teenage adventurers, and he's been running these guys doing these secret ops, possibly for some secret clandestine organization, maybe a clandestine organization that he doesn't even realize yet is maybe a little bit evil, but that might be a little too Hydra cappy. But, that's my idea, is that when we get to this DC universe, we find out that it's actually a much more expanded DC universe. It's just always been in the shadows because it's been Nightwing that's been organizing this secret superhero community. And that it's Nightwing who is really... that now that Batman and Wonder Woman are finally getting around to forming a Justice League, they're going to find out that Dick already had one. And and the way you're going to know this is if when they talk to Cyborg in the Justice League film, he says, "Man, you guys are so much less organized than my last team." Because you got to do that kind of reference. And they do that. I think that the DC universe is going to be as big as Marvel then. I think that in the same way that Deadpool saved Fox's mutant line, I really do believe that. I honestly believe that prior to Deadpool, Fox was maybe just about going to walk away. But I think Deadpool gave them a reinvigoration, and it gave them a clue to the secret sauce. I think that that's what Nightwing can do for DC. I think they may get halfway there with Wonder Woman, but because of their continuity, they have to put Wonder Woman back on the shelf at the end of Wonder Woman. They can't have her continuing on unless they give her the white jumpsuit, which might be cool, and just have her working in the shadows. Maybe even she works with Dick Grayson once or twice. Wouldn't that be interesting? Yes, maybe she'll meet up with I Ching. He'll teach her kung fu, which will be cool. By the way, speaking of, there's always talk about the reinvention of certain characters, and honestly, the way they reinvented I Ching in the new Superman book, I think was pretty awesome. Yeah. But that's me. Okay, so speaking of Fox and their recommitting to the mutant universe, and at the same time, Marvel is recommitting to their mutant books, It really seems like over in the Marvel universe, a lot of wars have ended. I think that Feige is no longer fighting with Perlmutter. I think Feige and Loeb are working together, which I think we're seeing a lot in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this season. We certainly saw it a lot in Luke Cage. And and I think that that's the thing. Everyone always, I think that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has suffered a lot because of that war between those two. Because I think that when you first saw it, the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think you got a lot more connection. As I've said, that first season you had Nick Fury on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you had Maria Hill on the pilot episode, and then she's at the second season opener too. You have her throughout it. You had Sitwell in the first season. You had all these things that people always say, oh, it's not there. And I kind of think it always has been there. It's just that, it's not about those guys. It's about the central core cast. And now we're, after last episode, we're going into the framework and we're seeing the new Hydraverse, which to me really signals some kind of thoughts about Hydra Cap. Because what it really is at its core is this idea that in this universe, Hydra is out in the open. Mm-hmm. And, did Hydra actually take over at the end of Civil War? Was there maybe no Captain America in place to take over Hydra? I don't know. Or to take down Hydra? Or was this a universe in which Cap was always Hydra? Or maybe where Hydra just was always running the show, and it's an interesting question. It's interesting to see May, there as a team member of Hydra. I kind of want to go back and see if we can see any logos on anyone when she first goes into the framework and she saves the kid. You know, I kind of want to go back and now I want to see. Wait, were there any Hydra logos around? Did they tip this hand before and we never noticed it? And it's interesting because, of course, you know, when you think about what Hydra is it's based on what we're told, it's an organization that came about in direct relationship to the Inhumans. And this either, and it's not sure if it was a worshipfulness towards Inhumans or a fear of Inhumans. But if we tie it to what we're getting in Hydra Cap, it's very much about Hydra being aware of the threats in the universe and trying to prepare mankind to deal with them. It's all very interesting, and it's very exciting. I don't know. What do you think, Phil? I'm talking like a steamboat here.
The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, I just wonder if there's like a plan behind it, or if like the world's constantly shifting, so it's never like the same thing. Maybe it's locking in now, but the more minds that are in there, the more it like kind of has to adapt. The framework has to adapt.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's interesting how it's playing out. And we don't really know exactly what we're going to see. I think we are going to see cracks in the universe. I think much like when you had House of M, what happened was people noticed there were cracks in the universe. It is not impossible to deal with. It is not impossible to sort out. But, you know, it's stuff that's going to clue people in that the framework isn't perfect. Just 1 second, Phil.
Okay.
You can watch TV if you want. Okay. Anyway, yes. So, you know, I put it on pause, but I just remembered even when I'm on pause, it actually records, so people are going to hear that. That's okay. I didn't swear, so that's the important thing. So, you know, I think in the framework, people are going to see that there are flaws and there are errors. But, you know, here's what I'm going to say. You know, we've always, you know, because from what we can guess about what we're seeing, I'm kind of thinking about this universe in kind of the way that we've seen in the Flashpoint universe, the things that changed. And I just like the fact that Cisco was a tech billionaire in that universe, and it seems like that's what Fitz is in this universe.
Yes.
It's really like, wait, there's a universe where I'm not rich? I don't know if I want to go back to that. Yes, and like Alil said, this is a perfect time to bring back Lucy Lawless, so we got to definitely look for that. And Rob will be so very happy to have his Lucy Lawless back.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, and one of the other things I was saying is that, you know, Fox is saying they're very much pressing that they're committed to Fantastic Four. I don't know why they keep on pressing this, except maybe I don't know if that means. It's like when they say that, I don't know if that means that they're negotiating. Because I think when Sony was negotiating with Marvel, they kept on saying how committed they were to Spider-Man and how committed they were to the Tom Holland version and not Tom Holland. Who's the previous? Oh, Andrew Garfield. He hates Mondays. The Andrew Garfield version. Loves Italian food though. You know, I know that was something they kept on doing, so I don't know if every time we see Fox saying how committed they are to the Fantastic Four, that is evidence that they're really talking to Marvel about it. I don't know. I really would love to.
I saw an article this morning. They said, "Oh, we're not going to do another Fantastic Four until we get it right," and everyone was commenting, "Oh, so you're never going to do one?"
Well, you know, here's the thing. I think they can do Fantastic Four right. I think there's lots of ways to do Fantastic Four right. You know, you can do like they've been doing with the X-Men, which is you go to the past and you have the fact that the Fantastic Four have always been there, but that they haven't been as big, you know, or that they've been out doing science work, you know. It's a little harder because part of the Fantastic Four's whole shtick is that they are a public organization, that they're a big group of people in the middle of the universe. And they are leading the charge, you know, that they are celebrities. And, of course, that actually became intrinsic into the story with Reed actually making the point that was his plan all along, that he had turned his family into freaks and monsters, and the only way to deal with that was to make them celebrities, you know?
Yes.
You know, and I think that's a great way to look at it, to look at this way that this person who... Even if you want to integrate it into the modern X-Men continuity. You have this fact that you have people that are so afraid of mutants and monsters, and then you have Reed Richards say, "We've now become what is most hated and feared in this universe. I know how to fix it. I'm going to become a TV star." And here's okay. So Marvel, actually Fox, here's your free idea. The villain of your first Fantastic Four film. Don't go to Doom. Just stay as far away from Doom as you can.
No.
Doom is a character best kept in mystery, and you want him for your third film. Trust me.
He's like the Thanos character. He's going to be the big bad, at the end of the trilogy.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I've always thought that was this great idea. In fact, I was even in some early fan movie ideas I had for the Fantastic Four. There was like this whole thing about not sort of predictive of our modern world, but I actually thought this as well was having the Latvian ambassador sort of manipulating things to get the Excelsior's flight shut down, so that he can't take the ship into orbit. And to me, I thought that would be a really, just to show this idea of this having this clandestine Doctor Doom behind the scenes and this clandestine Latvian power that, everyone knew about, but it was very, very questioning what its real role is. One thing I will say about building out a Foxiverse is that they really do need central planning. And that's what I think is the best thing in the MCU is its central planning, is the fact that they do think ahead and think about how they're going to fit everything together. Which is why I do think that now that the Civil War seems to be over in Marvel, now that Disney has basically said play nice and given everybody a little kingdom, the way any good emperor does. The Mouse Emperor said, "You shall rule this kingdom, and you shall rule that kingdom, and we shall work together for the greater good of all." The Mouse Emperor bartered a peace between his warring lieutenants, as I'm sure Kang often has to do when he's doing his time empire. And that is, I think now we're seeing, and I think we're reaping the benefits in this season's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think we reaped the benefits in Luke Cage. And I think we're going to keep on seeing this building out. I think we really have gotten into a better, I think the Marvel Universe has been made stronger because of it. Because now nobody feels like they're being bossed around, but everybody also is getting bossed around by the Emperor Mouse. Fear my four-fingered hand. Okay. So that's my take on that. The Emperor Mouse. What else is going on in the Marvel Universe this week, Phil? Phil, why don't you? Do you have any thoughts? Anything that?
What I'm curious about is you finally watched Legion. What did you think?
I've seen one episode so far of Legion. I like it. It's interesting. It's trippy. It's hard to follow.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about now. That can be good. That can get you into that whole, not Cronenberg, David Lynch space. Although Cronenberg can also be hard to follow. It gets you into that David Lynchian space where it's what's real and what's fantasy. I mean, I still don't know if that girl he's talking to is real or just all in his head. Honestly, I don't know if anyone he's talking to is real or all in his head. But I am intrigued. I did set it up to record. So I do have to go back and watch the first two episodes. But the thing I really liked was this statement where they say they're in Division 3. And they say that this was before all the divisions. And I'm thinking, so when they say it's the third group that was divided off. Which, is actually what division means, but you don't think about it when you hear it. It's when you think about Department H, you never think about, what's in Department I? What's in Department J? What's in Department G, for that matter, Yeah. Or if there's an MI5, is there an MI6? Is there an MI13? What are the extra things? And those are interesting questions. And so I'm intrigued by it. I mean, I enjoyed it, and it's certainly not in the Exoverse as far as we know, unless, of course, this is all happening in Legion's head, That's the thing, is the final episode, maybe him awakening, and it's everything we've seen up until this point has been a dream, And now we're going to sort out the next thing. Oh, but very cool. It's a great series, I think. You know,
Oh, yeah.
and you know, and it shows you that Fox can do good stuff. You know, I think that Fox has done good stuff. I don't think their X-Men are as bad as everyone says. I've generally speaking enjoyed them. You know, we're always unhappy when certain characters like the Juggernaut get short shrift.
Yes.
But honestly, that's a minor issue to me. You know, really, because at the end of the day, as I always say, there has to be differences. It can't be the same thing you already know. It can't be what you saw, you know, a dozen times before. It can't be the story you already read, because then it's going to be boring. You have to make these changes to have it be its own thing. And, you know, sometimes that means characters are going to get short shrift. What I would really rather is that they would focus more on the characters they have and not focus nearly as much on just bringing in characters just to have them do cameos.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one thing I think that they overdo. And I think that there is a legalistic reason to that, which is the idea that they have to keep on using characters to make sure they have an established use of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they go and recast the character and retell that character anyway. So it's like, you know, you had Caliban in I think it was like the third movie, and then we have him again in Apocalypse, but it's a completely different Caliban and completely presented a different way.
Yes.
And you had all these things before, and now they're going to just do them again. But they've already established that they have a movie version, so they theoretically still have the rights to it, I guess, is how they would approach it. Yeah, and I still think that part of the deal was that you're never going to get a Scarlet Witch in the DC universe, and you will never get a Quicksilver in the Marvel, or not the DC, in the Fox universe. You'll never get a Quicksilver again in the Marvel universe until there is a peace brokered, and that, of course, is what Emperor Mouse must next do. Emperor Mouse must reach out to the land of darkness to bring all of his children home. That is our hope for you, Emperor Mouse. We will see if you can be a just and fair ruler. Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there was any other real big news. I don't really think there has been. I mean, I think the biggest news this week has been that last episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we don't get a resolution for 6 weeks?
Something like that, yeah. It's not back till April, yeah.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. But, this is my thing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I do think that and this is why I really want to look. This is what's going to tell you how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is really doing, is you have to get Netflix's numbers on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because when I first started doing a rewatch of Agents just for fun, I realized how much better this series was when you just watched it back to back.
Yeah.
When you watched it on a regular basis, you go, oh, wow, okay, yeah. And you realize that everything that people complained about, all of it was there. You had movie references, you had superpowers, you had guest stars, you had everything going on there. It was just because it got so spaced out, you didn't notice it.
Yeah.
Because you had the first 3 episodes where you get to Graviton, and then you had a break. And then you had a couple more episodes, and then you had a break. Honestly, I think it's partially just that I think ABC never was as committed to it as Disney wanted them to be.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, I kind of think that maybe ABC is kicking themselves on it because they kind of see that now there's a lot of other properties that Marvel's developing that are getting way more attention. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of stuck there in this spot where people have already turned off from it. And they can't build it out, It's very hard for them to do because now they have to go back and say, no, we are going to be committed. But then they still have just the basic production schedule issues. And the problem that they have with that interconnected universe is, if they're going to do references to things, they can't reveal it until it gets played out. So, they can't, if they're going to have a Homecoming reference, they can't have it until Homecoming comes out.
See, I like the interconnected stuff, but I think that's the one strength of DC's multiverse or even the Fox stuff. It's if you have a TV show and you have the movies, it's you could say, yeah, no, this isn't in that universe, so we can take this in a whole different direction. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think part of the problem is they're stuck. Yeah, the movies come first, and whatever characters the movies aren't going to use, they get those. And like you said, if there's a reveal, they have to wait for the movie to come out or right before the movie. Or
yeah. And that's of course also I think the advantage to the Netflix is they know everything drops on this day.
Yes.
So anything we're going to put in here, it can't. This is the universe up until this point, and nothing we do on this is going to cross into that universe. So everything from here we can bring in, everything we can have there come out. Yeah, and you know what this is the thing I'll say. You know what I find the most fascinating about the disconnection between Netflix and all of the universes and everything else is the one thing that nobody wants to talk about was the Hulk smashing Harlem. And I really wish someone would go back to that and explain why no one talks about that.
Do you think, is it a thing with Universal, like they don't know like where the rights are exactly?
Well, you would think, except Bruce Banner in Avengers mentions that the Hulk broke Harlem the last time he was in New York.
Yeah, but I wonder, does Universal get like money anytime they mention that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would seem kind of weird that they would, because it does seem like it's a minor. It's even just a passed off reference. So,
yeah, but that was like their movie, so I just wonder, anytime you mention their product, they get money.
I don't know. You don't have to give money to the Balm Estate every time you mention Flying Monkeys. So I don't know. Unless now we're going to get a bill. So Flying Monkeys, we'll see if we get a bill from the Balm Estate.
Yeah, but this is a brand new world too. So I think everything is plotted out, and contracted, and.
Yeah, and it could just be that, like I've said before, that maybe as much as the Hulk thinks he broke Harlem, he kind of only like knocked over a couple buildings that were pretty much abandoned already, and that the damage done to Harlem was much less than maybe the Hulk thinks it was. The Hulk thinking he was like really impressive, and they're like, it was, not for nothing. This is a city where rocket launchers are being used by people in the city. Just to settle debts. So, maybe they're like, yeah, come on, man. You really, Hulk, you were scary. Don't get us wrong. We were very frightened at that moment, but it got dealt with. It got dealt with, It wasn't an alien invasion. Nobody thought the Hulk was going to take over the world, Yeah. They just wondered why these two jerks were fighting in the middle of the street, Anyway, it was kind of like that whole Luke Cage and Diamondback thing. Just fighting in the middle of the street. Everyone's gathered around. What are these two idiots fighting about? Anyway, okay, Phil. Don't want to go too long this week because, of course, everyone's subway ride ends eventually. So, Phil, if people would like to reach out to you and talk to you about all the things that you love and that they love too, where can they find you?
You could always write to me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp, and I'm usually pushing all the different podcasts I'm on. But like Charlie Esser mentioned, my Legends of DC blog, and I also write one for Marvel, The True Believers. You can find those both either at southgatemediagroup.com or philparish.wordpress.com.
And look at the bottom of them to find snide comments from me. Okay, and of course you can always reach out to me in that old-fashioned email way at the name of the show blog at gmail.com. That's Superconnectivity blog, all one word, at gmail.com. I used to write a blog, Someday I will again. And of course you can follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet all the shows I do, from Powerless, the best DC show ever, to Legends of Tomorrow, the worst DC show ever, to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a pretty good DC Marvel show, and of course The Incredible Hulk, 7 o'clock on Saturdays on MeTV for as long as Hulu has that. And if anyone can write to Hulu and say, get more Hulk episodes, I'd appreciate it. Or write to Netflix and say, why don't you have the Hulk anymore, as I already have myself. If anyone knows another place that you can get streaming Hulk episodes, let me know. I may have to go out and find a DVD to buy. Okay, thank you for connecting with us this week, fair listeners. Oh, wait, I didn't actually give it. Follow me on Twitter. It's at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's right there in the middle for the quality. Okay, fair listeners. Thank you for connecting with us this week. Please connect with us again. Good night.